bride, wise political advocate, grandmother, lover of nature and dogs, and has salvaged torn curtains and inspired writers for the past 20 years. She has more than 60,000 Twitter followers and 145,000 on Facebook. And she was recently seen hanging out with Oprah on Super Soul Sunday. Now, there is a reason so many people listen to Annie Lamott's wisdom. There's proof when we look around this room and see how this community comes together. She's here tonight with her brand new book, Stitches, a handbook on meaning, hope, and repair. This book, like Help, Thanks, Wow, holds these wonderful insights and the kind of stories that only Annie Lamott knows how to tell. But also, this book goes in deeper and addresses those times when our lives may be out of balance or tipped towards hopelessness. This metaphor of stitching things back together resonates with us, reminds us that we live our lives stitch by stitch, if we're lucky. We are ever thankful for Annie's bravery and generosity to keep showing up and writing and telling stories. Please join me in welcoming Annie Lamott to book.
I know most of you. Thank you very much for coming. I raised my child at this bookstore. Elaine gave me a living wage to teach writing at this bookstore when I was, and I owe a lot to this joint.
Goes both ways.
And so today's my pub date. I haven't had any readings yet, so we'll figure this out as we go. And what can I say? Let's see. Well, you can ask any questions you want later. I think that's really what people like about readings. I don't like long readings myself. I can't really follow them, and especially if they're my own. And I just want to get the questions if I'm at anybody else's reading. So, will you take this for me, Shona? Good catch. So I'll just tell you, this book I wrote it accidentally. I also wrote Help, Thanks, Wow accidentally because I had written a book with my son, Sam, on purpose. When he had a child at 19 that no one had asked me how I felt about that. And I had written a book about him, as some of you know, called Operating Instructions when he was born. And Sam and I wanted to do a journal of his son. And while we were on tour, I was speaking in New York about how complicated people make prayer. But all prayer people know that it's really just saying hi, or oh my God, or it's so hopeless, or I hate everything, and I say often really bitterly, what? So about what? Or I say, this is a joke, right? You're punking me. But I said the only prayer you really need are help, thanks, and wow. It just covers everything. Help is a great prayer. And my publisher had been there, Jeff Klosky, and he said to me later, he said, I want a cup of that. And he's not at all religious. So Riverhead asked me to write this book, and we did it very quickly. And people liked it because people want to talk about the mess of daily life, the mess of a human life, the confusion and the disappointment that we get some things and we don't get other things that we really, really hoped for and longed for, or we lose things that we lose people we can't live without. And where do we even start? Well, I found myself the day after Newtown thinking, where do we even start? I've been giving talks on the search for meaning for a long time because I think it's this central question of our lives is what's true and who are we and whose are we and what's real and what are we here for. And after Newtown, which was on a Friday, I had Sunday school to teach on 2 days later, and I thought, what on earth am I going to tell those children? Because I tell them every week, you're loved, you're chosen, this is a come as you are, it's life, and you are welcome here. People forgot to mention that to me when I was little. You are welcome as is. And I always tell the children, you're safe. You're safe in love. We love you. We're here for you. 100% of the time you can say anything to us. If something is scary, tell us. If something is too sad for even words, be with us. And I thought, how am I going to tell these children? It's usually like 3. I have the medium, so I might have like a 6, an 8, and a 12-year-old, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are developmentally different. And then there's the little ones where my grandson and his colleagues hang out, but they wouldn't know what's going on. But the mediums will. The mediums know that they were the age of the children slaughtered in Newtown. So I thought, what am I going to tell them? So I thought, well, you start where you are, you breathe, so we stick together, we get each other water, and you get to tell the truth. And I've been here 59 years now, and 100% of the time, the light has continued to shine in the darkness. And the darkness has not ever once, against all odds, put it out. So I thought I'll start there, see what happens. So there's a story about what we ended up doing with Mason, my friend Janine's boy who was 15 at the time, and a girl I have who's 14, they were the kids that showed up, and so you can read about it. It's not like it's the thing about my stories is that not all that much usually happens. So it's not like I'm withholding a plot, It's like what happens is things in my stories are scary and weird. And it all goes so quickly. It goes by in about 6 months. And all of a sudden you're looking in the mirror and you're thinking, who is it? I remember Maude on the Golden Girls saying, these aren't my hands, these are my mother's hands. and I look in the mirror now and these are my mother's hands. I'm 6 years older or 5 years older than my dad was when he died. And it goes by so quickly. My grandson is 4. My little one is 24. I'll be 60 next year, I'll be 50-10 next year. And then I thought of all these stories that I thought were medicine. And the great Barry Lopez said, well, when all is said and done, what we have is compassion and stories. Sung and read and told. Written on the walls. Written on gates. So I just felt it was on my heart. And I very rarely feel that. I'll get a lot of you have heard me talk about writing, I'll get kind of a tug on my sleeve and I'll think, oh no, I'm going to be writing a novel. Because novels take forever and they go badly and you're kind of mentally ill the whole time. And you fall so far short of what you set out to do every time. I've written 7 of them. And it's been the same experience. If I did another one, which I'm not going to do, it would be exactly the same. It doesn't buy me anything. It's my 15th book. It doesn't buy me a thing. But usually you get kind of this tug. You go, I remember I've been teaching writing here forever. And I thought, I'll just put it down on paper because no one's telling the truth to writers. That it doesn't go that well most days. You never feel like writing. I've never once been in the mood to write. I would much rather watch MSNBC. I need a nap every day. I have dogs. I have a lot of people coming through my house. And I never want to do it, but I have the habit of doing it. Because I was given an artist's heart and vision. I see things with a mind to crafting them into something I can hand over. So I thought, well, just tell the truth. You know, you may not get published. It may not happen. Most writers were telling their students that if they did certain things, if they fashioned a query letter this or that way, they would almost certainly get read and probably published fairly soon. And it's not true. And when you do get published, it can be devastating. And it's mostly about nothing happening. Right? And there's some great writers in here. And what happened is you created a piece of beauty. Like when you like you do with art, with music, with dance. You've been a part of creation and beauty and giving warmth and light to a cold and dark world. But boy, nothing happens. You know, nothing happened. Today's my publishing date. Nothing happened. And finally I just felt that God had come by and told me I should just really eat a lot. That was the only thing that happened. I signed some stock. You know, I don't personalize. I will sign anything you bring, but I signed stock for tonight and for later, and that was really it. Went for a hike at Deer Park with Shelley. Shelley and I went for a hike, and that was it. Sugar, I had a lot of sugar because God told me to. I want you to just tell the truth. It's going to be easier if you're going to do it if you know what you might expect. Okay, it's going to be an inside job. If there's going to be healing because you wrote something, it's going to have to come from within. You're not going to believe me, you're not going to get the respect you're searching for from the publishing world. Believe me, it's going to be from within. And writing may help you connect with that, to this pool of self-regard and kind of amazement that you've actually done it. But same with parenting, and I got it on my heart to I just started writing operating instructions, partly because Sam's father had come by and given me a journal. Sam's father, not his father, his best friend, John Manning, and he said he was thrilled I was going to have a child, and with his best friend John, Sam's dad, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be the godfather." I said, "Okay." I was about an hour pregnant. And then he gave me a journal, and he said, "Write down one sentence about this every day." And I started writing it, and it was really from the heart. And it was 24 years ago, and people hadn't come out of the closet yet around parenting and saying it is unbelievably hard and weird. And some days don't go as well as you had hoped. And children are really hard and very vulnerable. And you're scared all the time. You will never draw another complacent breath. And bad things are going to happen to your children. People weren't saying that yet. People were saying, now if you do this and this, you will almost surely have results such as you're aiming for with the child. And, but the child didn't get the book. You know? So I started writing about having really dark thoughts, or because you're never more tired, ever, during your darkest, druggiest, all-night days. You're not as tired as you are the first 3 months of having a child. And you're just like so on beyond zebra. And you're in love, but you haven't had any sleep in a very long time. And it turns out you're not only very, very tense. Why not come up here? There's a seat. Why not? Come up here, there's a seat next to Neshama. It turns out that you're much angrier than you had ever known. And so that child is kind of a portal to the fact that you're just enraged. Here, sweetie, right, look, here's Neshama. Can you believe it? Don't start talking to her and doing something like that. I saw her like 2 days ago. It's okay at church. St. Andrew Presbyterian services at 11. Hope to see most of you there on. So bring your kids. We want your kids. So, but I would feel like this. I always told my writing students here, write what you'd like to come upon. Shelley, I haven't seen the shirt you gave me. Shelley gave me this. Mike, look at this. Is that like perfect? Right. I got another one, but she gave it to me, but I had to take it back because it's too tight. This one's pretty tight. So anyway, Shelley got it for me. We've been friends really close since we were 6. Over 35 years ago. operating instructions, and then characters have come into my mind and come. Are you Ann? Hi. And you're Mr. Ann. But with this book, I felt like I wanted to find it. I was going to write the book I wanted to come upon that said, where is there meaning after Newtown? Where is there meaning after your wife dies in her 30s? Where is there meaning if you have had more loneliness than one human should ever have in 1 or 2 lifetimes? Where's the meaning in that? Where's the meaning when you come home and your husband out of the blue has fallen out of love with you and is moving to be with the person he loves, who's much younger, and you have a clue. You didn't have a clue that your husband had like a 14-year-old girlfriend. You were married for 30 years and you've raised children and you were on vacation and you love each other and he wants a divorce. Where's the meaning? Well, the meaning is in human love, obviously, and in a divine love as it's expressed in human love. And I have found most of the meaning in my life in community, although I'm definitely a loner and I spend most of my time alone and I like to be alone. I found a community. I found this funny little church 28 years ago. I found a community of people who are willing to help me try to get sober 27 years ago. So I had that kind of gap year at church. I had this little bike. I didn't have a cent. I had 3 books out. I had this little bike. I weighed like 1 pound. So remember, this was tiny. So we turned to community. Mr. Rogers says we look to the helpers. What do we, after the tsunami, hundreds of thousands of people killed. Where's the meaning? Is God involved in that? I don't think God caused the tsunami. I think a lot of forces caused the tsunami. The tsunami happened. Where do we see God? Well, you see God in the aftermath. You see God in the helpers. You see God in the resurrection stories. So I just thought, I knew I was going to not be able to put a lot of it into words because I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about, but it's hard to articulate. And so we tell stories. And we remember things that people say and said to us that really were medicine for that day, really were the living water that day, and were really enough, just a couple stitches for that very torn, raggedy day. And so I put that in. And so, let's see. That is this new book. In front of 1,000 people, Saturday at the Kidney Foundation. I could not for the life of me think of the subtitle. And I had to ask. The subtitle is, but you know, I mean, everybody goes, yeah, we make that sound like an unusual thing because we're all there, right? Because we're getting a little funny. My zipper's always down. I'm always lost. I have a GPS. I have a GPS, and my son got me the, what's it called? It's not Bluetooth. It's like OnStar. OnStar. And he got the OnStar. He got that. And so I hate to bother them. And I have GPS and OnStar that does street block by block directions, and I'm always lost anyway. And it's just the way we are. And you know, people forgot to say, it's really okay. The way you are is so lovely. It's really okay. You don't look like anyone else because we're wonderfully and fearfully made. Each of us is beautiful as the last and fearfully made, as vulnerable as kittens. As vulnerable as kittens here, we know that. We have lost so many people. So I'm just sort of into celebrating the fact that it's all going. I tweeted the other day that besides your vision and your back hurting most of the time, and your feet aching, and your memory just shot to hell. The worst thing is that you don't recognize anybody in People magazine. So you don't even have that. There's not even the solace of Us Weekly, because they're all about 20. You know, and all the girls are like hookers, right? And then there's you, Nana. Fly down. And sometimes my shoes don't match. I'll go outside. I mean, I went out the other day with one sock, and I was going, what's wrong with this picture? And I somehow forgot, while putting on my socks, I got distracted and went put on what? You know, and we're all in the same boat. That's the message. We're all in the same boat. We stick together. We share what we have. We share what we have. We're hungry for what we're not giving. Give more. You want to get in a great mood? You do 4 loving things, and you give away what you were planning on having yourself later. You give it away. You're going to get buoyant. You're going to get crazy happy. You're going to get too happy. And that's so amazing. Like when you realize, oh my God, I'm too happy. I'm in one of my states. That's what heaven will be like. And it will be just here on earth in this funny, funky kingdom. When we give. Here, I'll read you the Dag Hammarskjöld epigraph. Is that how you say it, Ingrid, do you think? Hammarskjöld? I know it's... Skjold. Yeah, a German. No. Swedish, yeah. Hammarskjöld. You don't say the J, right? The S. It's S-K-J. Like, I mean, no offense to your people. I would spell this name H-A-M-M-A-R-S-H-O-L-D, right? Okay, there's a K and a J. R-S-K-J. It's ridiculous. Anyway, he has been such a huge inspiration to me. He was a great diplomat with the UN, and his memoir, he just can pierce you with his humanity. Thank you for your help. I'm reminded of how to say it every year, and then I forget. I mean, I'm one with one sock. So anyway, we'll start over. Dag Hammarskjöld for markings, which I recommend. I don't know who or what put the question. I don't know when it was put. I don't even remember answering. But at some moment, I did answer yes to someone or something, and from that hour, I was certain that existence is meaningful, and that therefore my life in self-surrender had a goal. So let me read you the first 4 or 5 pages. It can be too sad here. That's the truth. We so often lose our way. It's easy to sense and embrace meaning when life is on track. When there is a feeling of fullness, having love, goodness, family, work, maybe God as parts of life, it's easier to navigate around the sadness that you inevitably stumble across. Life holds beauty, magic, and anguish. Sometimes sorrow is unavoidable, even when your kids are little, when the marvels of your children and your parental amazement are all the meaning you need to sustain you, or when you have landed the job and salary for which you have always longed, or the mate. But then the phone rings, or the mail comes, or you turn on the TV. Where do we even begin in the presence of evil or catastrophe? Dead or deeply lost children, a young wife's melanoma, polar bears floating out to sea on scraps of ice. What is the point of it all when we experience the vortex of interminable depression, or conversely, when we recognize that time is tearing past us like giddy greyhounds? It's frightening and disorienting that time skates by so fast. And while it's not as bad as being embedded in the quicksand of loss, we're filled with dread each time we notice life hot-footing it out of town. One rarely knows where to begin the search for meaning, though by necessity we can only start where we are. That would be fine when where we are, where we find ourselves, turns out to be bearable. What about when it isn't, After 9/11, for instance, or a suicide in the family? I really don't have a clue. I do know it somehow has to do with sticking together as we try to make sense of chaos, and that seems a way to begin. We could start with something relatively easy. C.S. Lewis famously said about forgiveness, if we really want to learn how to forgive, perhaps we had better start with something easier than the Gestapo. But maybe counterintuitively, it makes sense to start right off with hard rather than say easy. Where is life's meaning after Katrina or an unwanted divorce? If we're pressed for an answer, most of us would say that most of the time we find plenty of significance in life as it unfurls in front of us like a carpet runner. At least when it goes as expected, day by day, with our families and a few close friends. We have our jobs and those we work or play or worship or recover with as we try to feel a deeper sense of immediacy or spirit or playfulness. Most people in the world are striving simply to feed their kids and hang on. We try to help where we can and try to survive our own trials and stresses, illnesses and elections. We work really hard at not being driven crazy by noise and speed and extremely annoying people whose names we are too polite to mention. We try not to be tripped up by major global sadness, difficulties in our families, or the death of old pets. People like to say that significance or import, is all about the family. But lots of people do not have rich networks of hilarious uncles and adorable cousins who all live nearby to help them. Many people have truly awful families, insane, abusive, repressive, alcoholic. So we work hard, we enjoy life as we can, we endure. We try to help ourselves and one another. We try to be more present and less petty. Some days go better than others. We look for solace in nature and art, and maybe, if we are lucky, the quiet satisfactions of our homes. Is solace meaning? I don't know, but it's pretty close. The kids say, it is what it is. They can say this with a straight face since they have not yet had kids. I remember my youth and having that same great confidence in bumper stickers and my own thinking. Say it's true. Say it is what it is. We're social, tribal, musical animals. Most of us do the best we can. We show up, we strive for gratitude, and we try not to be such babies. But then there's a mass shooting, a nuclear plant melts down just as a niece is being born, or you find love. Right then, it happens, the bad thing. The world is coming to an end. In environmental ways, it's true. We know that. We can see that. And in existential ways, it has been since the day each of us was born. It's pretty easy to think you know the meaning of life when your children are small, if they come with all their parts and you get to live in that amazing cocoon of oneness and baby smells. But what if your perfect child becomes sick, obese, an addict, or a homeless adult? What if you wake up at 60 and realize you forgot to wake up, and you never became the person you were born to be, and now your hair is falling out? You think about this for the first time when maybe it's a little late. Your life is 2/3 over, or you're still relatively young, but your girl went from being 2 years old to being 11 in what felt like 18 months, and then in what felt like 8 weeks to 15 years old, where she has been now sharply dressed as a bitter young stripper for as long as you can freaking remember. Oh, honey, buckle up. It gets worse. Where is meaning in the meteoric passage of time, the speed in which our lives are spent? Where is meaning in the pits, in the suffering? I think these questions are worth asking. Christians would say that the answer is simple. Life's meaning is to seek union with God and be Jesus' hands and eyes for the people who need help and companionship. The people in AA might also say it is simple, to stay sober one day at a time and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. For Buddhists, the answer is mindfulness, kindness, and trying to remember to breathe every so often. Environmentalists want to save the planet for all species, or at least a number of them, and so forth. Ram Dass, who described himself as a Hindu, said that ultimately we are all just walking each other home. I love that. I try to live by that. These are true and rich philosophies, but often only on good days. What follows here is intended to be useful on the bad days. So, I'll just read one more paragraph. Like life, this book is a patchwork of moments, memories, connections, and stories that I found that help me steer in the direction of answers that will hold for now and maybe even over time. They are observations that in troubled times help me find my way once again to what T.S. Eliot called the still point of the turning world. So where do we start? Start where we are. I wonder if anyone has any questions. Yes, miss?
If you weren't able to be a writer, what profession would you see yourself doing?
If I weren't able to be a writer, what profession would I see myself? I always want to be a teacher. I always want to be a professor, because first of all, you get to stay in college for a long time. And I love school. And I believe teachers and nurses, contrary to what Mr. Schwarzenegger used to say, are the most astonishing people in our midst. And I believe they will get the best seats in heaven. I believe they will be near the Godiva fountain. And I also want to be a teacher. My dad taught prisoners at San Quentin English and writing, and my younger brother teaches special ed in Novato. And I grew up teachers, librarians, nurses. I mean, girls didn't have very many. There were very few things girls were thought to be a good match for. I mean, you get the random doctor that was a woman. You get the few lawyers. Now there's more women in law school and medical school than men. But in the 50s, that wasn't the case. And I was raised, I knew I was going to have a life in books. Because you know our house, it was just a house of books. Everywhere you looked, books and piles of paper. And I knew I would make a life in that world. To me, it's like a world that's more, the world of writing and literature and poetry is really more real for me most of the time than what we would euphemistically call the real world. It's where I was saved, it's where I found salvation. In chapter books at 5 and 6 years old, it's where I still turn for salvation. Where I will go tonight with tonight's chapter book. And be a 500-page chapter book. But so this is what I believe in. I do believe in God, and I do believe in stories. Yes?
Now you've got me curious, what are you reading now?
Oh, you don't want to know. Please don't ask what I'm reading now. Please. Okay, well, let me give you the excuse first, okay? I'm going to be in 14 cities in 14 days, okay? And tomorrow I leave really early. So, oh my God. I hope Elaine, is Elaine still here? She's gone, okay. I'm reading the new John Grisham book. You can be next. I just read a real book though that was Zealot with a physical life to it. Zealot, which was I felt very ambivalent about. It's a very interesting book about Jerusalem during the Roman occupation when Jesus is born and comes to say that he is the Messiah, along with about 250 other guys who are also apocalyptic zealots, who also believe the world is coming to an end and that there's one way out. So, and I kind of liked it, although the guy I thought didn't make a persuasive case. But I enjoyed reading it, so thank God I have that to fall back on. I'm always reading poetry, and today I read the story that I liked very much in the New Yorker. Oh my God, my mind is going blank. Did you read the New Yorker? I'll come back to that. But it's someone I love. Do I have one here?
Samurai Murakami?
No, I don't like to read authors I can't pronounce. Hammersholt. Someone will go find it. Okay, yes, in the back. Yes, stand up. Yes.
I love the comment you made about teachers.
This is my first and second grade teacher, Lila Messi.
And I want to tell the audience, in first grade, second grade, when I had her, she wanted to stay in at recess and write.
Stay at recess and write. And I was such a good girl. Oh, this is the last one. It's the one that you can get online right now. I'm never going to hear the end of this. Okay, it's McGuane.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a new piece by McGuane about having it's scary and brilliant and exciting, like good writing is. Yes, and the maybe red, yes. Oh, I know you. It's Dawn Strawny Rhino. Okay.
Is set for this Sunday, the OWN network, because I'm going to catch the rerun
Yes.
of you with Oprah.
Me with Oprah.
So I know you wouldn't tell us if she was difficult and didn't.
I'll tell you the whole story. You can see it online. You can just go Oprah.com and there'll be this picture of me where my teeth look like shit. My nose looks like too long. And but about 4 months ago, the publicist at Riverhead got a call. Would I be available at the end of July to fly to Maui and be with Oprah for Super Soul Sunday, because she only has really this one show. So of course I would, and I also knew I was going to have a book out. And thus began one of the most torturous, painful experiences I've ever been through. And you know, the message is, if you think it's going to do it for you, it's going to make you crazy instead, until you get back to what will really work, which is radical self-care and union with a power greater than yourself and the love of your friends, period. And Mount Temple. What happened was back and forth. Okay, this day will work, that day won't work. Okay, this will work. They don't pay for anything. They don't pay for the hotel. They don't pay this. Pleasure. This is going to be. This can be. Well, then I picked out this incredible outfit to wear. I got it at Sidekicks in San Antonio, and it made me look very thin, and it was partly pink, and then this beautiful, beautiful Johnny Ross top over it with lots of lace and a trillion cute buttons. And it turns out I got there and I couldn't wear it because it didn't go with what she was wearing, which was yellow. And so, but I had another cute shirt that was kind of like a schmata. It was a Johnny Ross from like the Clinton administration. But it's so cute, and it's a very washed out sort of aqua, so it's a pretty color for me. And the whole thing was literally a nightmare. I had to, it's a long flight, it's 5.5 hours, and you're just nuts the whole time. You're rehearsing. It gets moved, it gets canceled. Then my friend and brother Jack Cornfield was going to be on the same week, same taping, so we got there, we got to be there together, but he was madly in love. He has a girlfriend, And so he was, oh, this is so, why aren't you staying longer? It's so romantic. It's like, well, it's kind of romantic if you're newly in love. It's not as romantic to be at like the Honolulu Hilton, or not, that's not what it was, not Honolulu, but I don't even remember. Like some convention hotel. And so then the day, you just do what you do. You do your life, you do your rituals, you do your whatever gatherings you go to where you remember who you are, blah, blah. And the day, I was supposed to start taping at 10:15, and I was picked up at 9:30 and brought to what they refer to as the green room, which is, I would guess, $10 million worth of Hawaiian and very California, beautiful, beautiful architecture. It's a cottage, and I was there for 4 hours because the person was being taped before me. So I started off, yay, it's showtime, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm thin, and I'm in my cute new outfit with the pink sleeves, which I still thought I could wear. And I went and I sat in the green room, and they forgot to mention there was no Wi-Fi or TV. There were people came in and out, and I never socialized, literally under any circumstances. So people are coming in that I have to socialize with. And 4 hours pass, and finally I get up to where the lawn is, where it takes over 100 people to make it look like you're having just a casual conversation. Over 100 people. So I'm in shirt number 2, and I've got a ton of makeup. They put so much makeup on you for TV, you could write, "Hi, Mom." Literally. And then finally I'm brought up, and then Oprah's running behind. So then I'm up there for another half hour, 40 minutes. And then Oprah arrives. Then this thing starts where you go to one far end of the lawn. You become a little Roz Chast character. You're like, and you stand there in your little shirt number 2, and then you wait for them to get the cameras all right, and then things come up, and then finally you walk across the lawn into Oprah's arms. And she's wonderful. She's actually so much more real and sweet, and she's a sweet, real person. She has paid through the nose. She's a great interviewer. It goes by very quickly. There's 100 people there. They rush over and powder you. You get a little shine. and then it passes, and you realize you didn't say one single thing you have planned. You've been rehearsing for 4 months, not one thing. And then it's over, and then you go back to your room. And then Jack was next. He was being taped next. He had to wait half an hour, but he was with his girlfriend. And then because he was the last one being taped, Oprah invited them to dinner at the plantation. So it's suddenly 7th grade. Right? Jack and his girlfriend and I were going to go swim on the beach tonight because there was a full moon. But they had fennel martinis with Oprah. And I had a cheeseburger. And I had a lot of sugar. I got through the day. The next day, Jack and I went off to snorkel, and his girlfriend accidentally closed the door of their car on my eye. And so the glasses got shoved in. But that wasn't even the bad part. The bad part was that reflexive weeping began through the one eye, and it poured and it streamed for almost an hour. And I was going, "Oh no, I'm fine." And my eye was and then I went home. And then it took about a month to metabolize all that adrenaline. And then it took 3 months to air. And it got changed. It being late November. Okay, that's fine. I no longer care. I no longer want to live. I'm not even. Now it's going to be October 5th. Well, that doesn't really help me because my book is October 29th. But that's fine because I don't care. I'm so evolved. And so angry. And then, so I finally see Oprah for the second time, Sunday. Jack came over to watch the show with me. And I went to church at 11 when it aired, and I was not obsessed. I literally was not obsessed because it was just done. And then he came over and we ate Acme olive bread and Lazy Swiss and apples, and it passed. And I said, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for getting me on that show. Thank you for anything I may have said that was helpful to anyone. Thank you. It's great. And now I'm going to take a nap." And that is the complete story. Ingrid.
I watched it 3 times.
You watched it 3 times? Yeah, no, people really liked it, or people that love me really liked it. But see, you're not objective, like your family. It doesn't count.
Great, and I noticed that Oprah, she really respected your honesty. She was a little bit surprised, and I think she has like how she interviews people.
She's saying she loved Oprah loved my honesty, although she seemed a little surprised. Yeah.
But she was very also entertained.
She was very entertained,
Yes,
yeah. And,
But you were great. You were great.
Yeah, I was great. So anyway, it's just, you've had that experience, Diane. You just are so positive. As soon as this thing happens, you're going to be well. And it's going to be enduring. And because you're going to finally arrive, and the FDA is going to have stamped the seal of approval because you are on stage, baby. And it passes, and you know what's left? You. You and whatever beauty and warmth you're creating with your life. And what's left is you and who you love. And what's left is you and the dogs. And what's left is you and Mount Tam, and the air you breathe, and the miracle that to have even been born constitutes. What are the odds of any of us being here? You know, and who knows if all of us will still be here Christmas morning. We don't know. We are wonderfully and fearfully made, vulnerable as puppies. So we stick together. Maybe one more question, and yes, and then in the back we'll get, yes.
Were you ready to be Nana?
Was I ready to be Nana? Well, I had always wanted to be Nana, but I thought for me, like anyone asked, I'd like to be Nana at about 30. And then when Sam was about 30 and I was about early 60s, well, 60 later, maybe. Yeah, 54, 55. But the thing is, the phone rings. You know, the mail comes. You were all healing from being control freaks. Most of us did not grow up in idealized families. We grew up afraid. We grew up looking different, feeling different, scared, and we came up with these survival techniques so that we could get by and feel that we were of value and that we were beautiful, even if we didn't look the part. And so I have a tiny, tiny problem with control. And I got a phone call one day from Sam, who was at art school, at university in the city, that he was going to have a child. And but I have had a lot of help. I've been sober 27 years, and I have had more people help me, hold me, walk with me, listen to me, cry with me, and they've let me help them. And it's like Nautilus, you know, you get a little stronger, you buy a little time, and so instead of saying, what the I said, oh, Sam. We talked for a few minutes. I didn't share my opinion. My opinion, my help is almost never helpful. My help is often harmful. And I try to protect people from me. Especially the person I love most, the most beautiful, precious part about my life. I try to protect him from me. So I figured pretty early on he's got enough on his plate. Got off the phone and prayed. I called a friend. That is the solution to 97% of the problems. Get off the phone, first of all. Take a long, deep breath. You do the sacrament of plop, and your mouth hanging open, and you pray, and you say, help. And you call a friend. In the back, yeah.
Okay. When I was born, I weighed less than 3 pounds.
Yeah, you have to start over. I'm sorry.
When I was born,
When you were born,
I weighed less than 3 pounds with my twin brother,
yeah,
and then we were giving up.
yeah.
And now through my embarrassing study of pharmacology and food, she's already in her 50s. It's very interesting. But life is so, because I'm writing myself, it's mess. You know, we see in the paper, children being killed and children killed. And
Children being killed and children killing, yeah. We see in the paper.
so I say to myself, whatever we see at large started small. So where do we start? That's my question.
The question is, where do we start?
Where everything you see large, like in the world, like children killing other people or children being killed, that's a large thing, but it started small. So where did that small thing start?
Where did that small, you see something explosive like Newtown, and that's so huge and life-changing, except not a single law has been passed yet. I understand your question. Thank you. It's so big. You can't even wrap your mind around it. But it started small. And her question is, where does that start? Where does that begin? Well, it begins in families, you know. It begins when children are brought into the world with, she was 3 pounds, the woman who asked the question at birth. And so it really is a miracle that, what? And given up. 3 pounds and given up. And I think a lot of us have experiences that are where the details are very different, but we know what it feels like to have been given up, and we know what it feels like to have been given up on, and we know what it feels like to be very, very, very small, and to try to stay very small, because it's so terrifying. Okay, I'm done. You can't talk anymore. Because I'll tell you why. Because I'm answering your question. I'm really grateful for your question, but I can't have a conversation with you because no one can hear you up here. And so you can share with the people you're with. When I'm done, it's going to be like 3 minutes, okay? Thank you. So I guess what I am saying is it starts small. It starts with one child and many, many children who are born into families that would have been better off raising more kids, you know? and people, many, many, many children were not wanted. Many, many children had nothing. Nothing. People in this community are born with just nothing. And then you look to the helpers, and you look to the teachers, and you look to the people who are doing ministries, and you look to the people who are doing literacy projects, and you become one of those people. And you can't save anyone. You can't get a single person sober. Not one single person in history has gotten another person sober. You teach them to read. It's probably not going to go as well as you hoped. It goes so slowly. And kids have other things they want to do besides be with us. You know, they want to be with their peers like we wanted to be with. And you just keep showing up. Diane's husband was my son's big brother growing up because my son didn't have a dad till he was 7. And Brian needed this kid. And Brian showed up, and Diane showed up on day 1 at the hospital. And Brian showed up about 3 days later at my house, and he said, "What you say?" He said, "Here I am." He said, "Here I am," and helped raise him, and was, along with my younger brother, the most important man, a beautiful man of spirit and soul and vulnerability. So you show up for one tiny child, and you say, "Hey, hi, here I am." And if it's somebody that's older and they're struggling and they're lost and they're at risk, you say, "Hey, you got a minute? I want you to read this poem, okay? I'm going to sit with you. Just read the poem. I want to talk to you about it for a few minutes, okay? That's all. Do you have a pen?" And you give me my pen. Here's a pen. You can say what Sam's father's best friend said, write one sentence every day. So yeah, there's one more question. Let's do that and then we'll stop. You can go, okay.
Thank you very much. What I want to say, Marin County can be a challenging place to raise kids,
Yes.
especially teenagers. And
Yeah.
when I say imperfect words helped our family save one Marshall's.
Good. I'm so
So I
glad.
just really wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Well, it was a compliment, so we'll gloss right over that. We'll go to the fact, and you all know this. This is a hard place to raise kids. All of our kids have lost peers, have lost. I live in Fairfax. We have lost like 5 or 6 kids. 20. Now they would be 24 and 25-year-olds, but they were younger. They died of the medicine in our medicine chests. They died of meth. They died of the cocktail. They died of adults not showing up and saying, "I'm here. I'm going to listen. I don't actually have a position on you. I'm going to listen. Do you need a pen?" And this is a very challenging place to grow up. And it's not just the luxury and the extreme wealth and privilege, the white privilege. It's really about the perfectionism that we have all, I think, really fought with our whole lives, that these kids are being raised. Oh my God. I mean, this was not the case when I was young. It just was not true in the 50s and 60s. And I have also at the same time had a lifelong battle for my soul against perfectionism. And the kids are not going to be able to be perfect. And that can be very disappointing to the parents. And that's what I'll leave you with. Sam and I had our book come out, Some Assembly Required. We got to do a lot of interviewing each other, which I really loved. And one question I asked him, one question I loved, and if you have young kids or a grandparent, I said, "What was the most valuable thing about having me as a parent?" And he said, "Your political activism. We always had my anti-war." He said, "You always were on the floor with me." And he said, "That's what I remember." And here, he was always on the floor. He was always on the floor. So he had Legos and he had notebooks, right, and colored pens. And he had a grown-up to play with, a grown-up to hang, to not have a position, to be company, to be a warm animal with him. And he said that was what was the best thing, was I was always on the floor with him. And then I said, what do you think the most important thing you can say to parents who have scary kids, scary teenagers? What's the most important thing you know? And he said, we are not interested in your position on us. He said, we are not your problem. And he said, the parents of teenagers need to get help for their problems. And when we begin to see that they're doing better and they're less frantic and that, the whole multitasking thing. Our kids are afraid to become who we are without healing, without recovery, without a crisis. They're afraid because people are gray and stressed and racing around with all their telecommunications apparatus and pockets and purses, They're afraid of that. And he said, when we see progress, then we'll be able to talk. But I love that we're not interested in your position on us. Look at you, And I got it. I heard it. Listen. Okay, thank you very much.